Hey folks, so when you build something, you gotta have a really good sense of what does the world look like if the thing that you're building achieves its highest goals, its highest ideals. That's what this conversation is going to be about. What does the world look like if we are able to attain the highest level of goals that we have set with Elinity? This goes a step beyond the vision. The vision is the kind of an abstract idea around that, but we want to take a very concrete, a very detailed look at what does the world look like at the different levels of attainment. Because again, we've got to be very clear. The highest level of attainment would be building that utopia that we want to build, but no company is ever able to do that. No movement can ever get that. So that's like the North Star. But one of the things that we can do, like if we touch just 1,000 people's lives, how are those lives different? If we just touch 1,000,000 people's lives, how are those lives different? So it's what we want to do in this conversation is painting the vision of that future that we want to build, and also talk a bit about the world that we don't want to be moving towards, the forces that we are fighting against. That is almost an equally important part of the vision setting. So let's start right into it. Now, beyond the obvious of wanting to start, again, the onion theory that, we build things on top of, start with why, beyond that tenet and beyond the core of that, the reason having a very concrete vision of the world that you want to build is so important is that you're going to bump into so many things in the future. You're going to bump into setbacks. You're going to have, there are going to be things forced upon the company that you would not agree with. There's going to be compromises. There's just going to be an avalanche of different things that you'll have to deal with. And if you're not careful, if you're not thoughtful, if that North Star isn't the absolute core of what you're building, then there's a very real risk that you could deviate away from that. And the thing about North Stars, because they're so far away, is that even the slightest deviation can take you off course substantially. And also, we could succeed. So, for instance, when Facebook started off, when a lot of these tech companies started, they would have ideals around the things that they wanted to see in the world. I wouldn't claim to be in the mind and, seeing what they wanted to see in the world, but I'm hoping that Mark Zuckerberg didn't want to see the world that we're currently living in because of some of the choices that his company and he made. But the point is that if you don't set the parameters, if you don't set the guidelines very, very clearly about what you are for and what you're not for, what you're fighting against, then the destination will default to the incentives of the present, or default to the easy path, because technology optimizes for engagement, and we optimize for comfort. And sometimes these drivers and these incentives don't always point us to that glorious future. So again, you want to have the whole picture when you're building. And again, you keep on refining, you keep on adding details, you remove stuff that doesn't work and all of that. But it's super important to have a very concrete version of the world that you want to build towards. So you know when you are detracting away from that, and then you can course correct. So a meta note before we talk about the world that we want to build towards, and the world that we want to build, periods, we think of ourselves almost like a philosophical movement as much as a tech company, as much as a research company for that matter. Because there are certain things that this is not so much about building products and helping people. That's you're doing that on the surface level. At the deepest level, you're attempting to change the operating system of society, trying to shift culture towards a world where everyone, in one sense, the world that we want to build is where everyone has great relationships, deeply fulfilling lives of passion and purpose and deep love. And to be able to do that sounds very utopian, that sounds very idealistic. But if you want to be able to do that, there's so many steps to get to that point. So what exactly are we moving towards? What do we want the world to be moving towards? We want our civilization to be optimized for eudaimonia, over dopamine, which has been this battle is going to shape the next decade of tech, of culture, and of the story of our civilization itself. And this is not hyperbole. I'll make the case for this. There's two types of happiness. Happiness is pleasure, and happiness is eudaimonia, as flourishing. The modern world is almost exclusively optimized towards the former. And there's a significant place for that in the world, but if we over-index on that, then we start moving into directions that are not optimal for long-term flourishing as a species, as individuals too, for that matter. The world that we want to optimize towards is a world of deep meaning, of intentionality, of belonging, of purpose, of growth, of love that endures friction. So what is the world that we are building towards? We really do believe strongly in the possibilities of tech enabling utopia. And the world that we see is a world where everyone's... it's going to sound like a very hippie vision, but I'm going to try to do my best without laughing. That's very difficult. Considering the very contrast, and considering that there's going to be a level of cynicism and pessimism, considering the state of the world today. But again, this is where the long-term nature of this movement, rather than this being a company, this is more of a vehicle towards that world. That meta nature of this movement comes into play. Because when you take a 100-year view, when you take a 200-year view, then you see that becoming a lot more possible. It doesn't even have to take that long, and we will make sure that it doesn't take that long to get to that world. So what exactly is that world? Let's get to the bottom of it. A world where people have lives of deep bliss and deep purpose and deep love and deep meaning. A world where everyone has the best relationships and everyone's got best friendships and collaborations, people are engaging in these deeply meaningful endeavors and projects and doing things essentially that make them feel alive. A world where people have attained self-actualization, they live on that plane, on that dimension, and they explore the depths of their consciousness, the depths of the beauty of the greatest relationships, the greatest friendships, collaborations, living lives of deep purpose and deep passion. And people are helped in this goal by this aligned AI, this Lumi. It helps them design and live their very best lives. There's their relationship buddy and their life coach and their everything that they need it to be. I'll talk a lot more about some of our goals, some of the details of the vision in the essay, because I do want to keep this short. But I'll talk about some of the goals that we have set, some of the heady goals that we have set. So first thing is we want to build the ultimate social connector. And the part of the subset of that is the ultimate matchmaker. This is the AI. And there's obviously the user experience, so it's not just the AI, but for all practical purposes, the system that can connect the best fit people, no matter the degrees of differences, no matter the odds of them coming across each other. Because you unlock so much, again, this is the core thesis, you unlock so much love and beauty and wonder and passion and delight and joy and all of the good stuff that you want to have in the world by connecting the best with people, be it for romantic relationships, be it for friendships, be it for collaborations. For romantic relationships, the ultimate matchmaker. If you can connect soulmate level people, divorces are going to be a thing of the past. Trauma, heartbreak, so much of it, so much of suffering, so much of pain comes from relationships and all of that. They'll be minimized to the highest degree. So you've done so much to alleviate, for a lot of people living in countries like the UK, the US, Europe, Australia, etc. Again, most of a huge amount of suffering comes from relationships. If you remove that, then you've taken huge leaps. And again, relationships are the foundation of a good life. Meaningful relationships, deep relationships. If you've done the work in helping people build the best relationships, you again unlock so much joy. You reduce, so you've done two things. You reduce needless suffering, trauma, heartbreak, all of that, and you brought so much joy, unlock so much joy and love and passion and all of the good stuff that you want to see in the world. And the thing about the connected thesis that we have is that relationships are also the greatest unlock to so many other things. Good relationships, they unlock better mental health, that improves decision making, that improves life trajectories, and better life trajectories compound over decades and generations. So we see this materially moving the very baseline levels, current levels of our well-being, of our how we feel about life. Because there's a lot of nihilism, there's a lot of suffering, there's a lot of pain going around. And we believe that if we are able to achieve what we're trying to build with this, build the ultimate relationship building platform, the ultimate social connector and matchmaker, the ultimate life flourishing AI, then I think this is not about us building it, by the way, I just want to make it clear, but just the sheer potential of something of this sort, doing the sort of thing that I can do, if you are able to execute, if you're able to, and that is going to require a ton of work, a ton of technical work, a ton of human work, talking with people, millions of people, engaging with experts, building with a lot of people, building with the smartest minds. Because this is, at the end of the day, the biggest human problem. Building the best relationships. That is what we care about the most, and that is what we fail at the most miserably. The mismatch needs to be fixed, and Elinity is attempting to do that. I did mention the way we see Lumi being a part of people's lives. I want to, again, this is going to be a part of a longer conversation, but I do want to make it clear the way we see Elinity, the way we see Lumi being a part of people's lives is that it's not going to be a replacement friend, it's not going to be a surrogate partner, it's not going to be a synthetic lover. It's going to be a mirror, a guide, a pattern recognizer, a growth companion, a relationship amplifier. It's going to help you design and live your best life. That's the way we see it. And there's just so much value, so much utility in having that AI whose sole purpose, who's emotionally intelligent, who's aligned to you, to your values, to your goals, and to your high level objectives, to your high level drives and all of that. It can bring so much, it can unlock so much for individuals and at scale for millions of people. And that's the way we see the AI playing the role of, your life flourishing body. So let's get to the other part of this discussion. What are the things that we're trying to fight against? What are the things that we don't stand for? We do not want to see virtuality replacing reality. And we've seen so many trend lines over the last 10, 15, 20 years. We're spending more and more time on our devices. A lot of the things that we sort of got from the real world, they're now had through virtual mediums. Porn is a perfect precedent for this. It didn't remove sex, it revived desire, it altered expectations that people had, it weakened pair bonding, it made reality feel insufficient and made intimacy almost obsolete. And AI companionship risks doing that, AI romantic companionship risks doing that for relationships. And there are other technological trends that, again, want to replace parts of our connection with reality. We don't want to live in a virtuality instead of the beautiful reality that we live in. One of the other big trend lines which is connected to the virtuality thesis is the simulacra trap. Simulacras are dangerous because they're just so insidious. They seem so real and so tempting that it's very likely that that's going to become a bigger and bigger part of people's lives over time, if not kept in check. Simply because of the very nature of the meta nature of their design, they're optimized for consumption. They remove resistance. Anything without resistance, again, we're seeking more and more comfort, and it just falls right in place. They flatter the self, they erase growth, and they are one of the biggest threats that humanity faces right now. Bigger than climate change, bigger than nuclear mass destruction, bigger than most of the problems that people talk about. The third trend line, that major trend line that we see ourselves fighting against, is ultra hedonism, which has been on the rise as a replacement for deep enduring meaning and deep enduring relationships. Is a quiet catastrophe, because again, it's just so tempting, and we are very pleasure seeking. But when we over-index on hedonism as our philosophy of life, and again, for a lot of people, I want to be very clear, for a lot of people, the things that we fight against, they might be the right way, but I'm saying that the world that we want to see, the world that we must have to have the highest levels of just well-being, just flourishing, that world does not have a place for these things happening at scale, at the scale of tens of thousands or millions of people. And so, back to hedonism. The society optimized for pleasure over everything else, it becomes brittle. And it loses a sense of the long-term nature. Then there's this intimacy collapse, this friendship collapse that we've seen lately over the last 20, 30, 40 years. And this is not so much about individual failing as about cultural failing. We've engineered a world that's hostile towards deep bonding, and then we blame people for not being able to connect. Same with the COVID generation. We had some cultural shocks, we had some even epistemic shocks, and we then blame people that, they just can't connect. But we don't look at the underlying reasons. When you look at the underlying reasons, the reasons there's been an intimacy collapses because of the reasons I mentioned, partly because of attention markets, because of algorithmic mediation and all of that. And unless you get this in check, you're heading towards a world where people lose the sense of self. They become a diminished version of themselves. The other thing that we're fighting against is dating apps as a category, because they are designed for optimize the engagement, not for outcomes. They incentivize endless choices. They're all about keeping people on the treadmill. They're about commodifying people, objectifying people, and they penalize long-term thinking. They penalize commitment. We also are fighting against the sterile future that we see in so many sci-fi books and movies, which came from a result of just projecting onwards from where we are to where we would be if the current technological trend lines continue. We don't want to have a world of sterile cities and emotional detachment and thin relationships and synthetic companionships. The way we think about the Elinity project, this movement, this vehicle, is that we think of this as becoming the beacon, becoming the future of the relationship infrastructure, the meaning infrastructure, the emotional landscape of the world. This is not about building a product, building a platform, building an ecosystem. It's about even shaping what people value, how people value, what feels normal, what feels possible. For most people, they don't even see the possibilities of relationships because they can't believe that relationships can be so good. And what feels worth striving for. And nothing could be more important than this. We'll talk a lot more about these in another conversation, but I'll leave it at that for this one. Thank you so much for the time. Cheers.